At the start of January, I had the opportunity to shoot an underwater music video with an extremely talented artist called Amelia Tarrant on her new single, Best Friend Heartbreak. The video concept was an emotional based music video, so a few singing shots, then the rest being super powerful underwater imagery. Now, I've shot plenty of music videos in my past, but I've never shot one underwater, so I was extremely excited to get on board with this project. Like anyone should before they shoot something that they've never done before, research the crap out of it. The budget for this music video wasn't extremely high, so I knew the rig we'd be using underwater would probably be the cheapest underwater housing there is, which is obviously a risk, putting such a high price bit of gear in a glorified zip bag and putting it underwater, but it was a risk that I was willing to take in order to get the shots we wanted to get. It's this little beauty. It has the has goggles in the bag at the minute, but this is what I trusted underwater. It was £70 off Amazon, and it did the job. It works really, really well. With the right process and planning, I generally think it's absolutely fine. You just have to double check that the seals are done and you're not rushing the process. Like, really take your time when you put your camera in there and don't rush the process of sealing it up. I had the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 4K in there, and it fit just about. I had the SSD, also had a battery pack, and obviously the big hefty 18 to 35mm lens on there. And yeah, it fit fairly snug. There wasn't room for anything else, but an overview of the shoot and some tips if you are looking to use this piece of equipment underwater. And probably the biggest issue that we faced was not actually anything to do with the equipment, was make sure you know the temperature of the pool you're using, or wherever you're shooting underwater. Check the temperature of what you're actually about to get into. I know that sounds super silly to say and pretty obvious, but when you're worrying about the housing unit and you're focusing on the equipment and the weights and all that kind of thing, you kind of forget about the water you're actually getting into. In our case, it was an indoor pool, but it was 16 degrees, which made it near on impossible to actually think straight whilst you're in the water. And because we shot this at the start of January, it was so cold. The pool wasn't heated. It was just like went with the temperature of the air at that time, and it was so cold, like so cold. Like, we had a big plan, we had a shot list, we knew, we were so confident what we were going to get. We spoke before we went in to make sure we 100% knew what we were going to get. We jumped in, all of that went out the window. Everything went out the window. Like, because it was that cold, you couldn't really think straight about what you're doing, and it was tough, but we managed to pull through in the end. But it really did like shock you when you got in and you were just like, oh, what's going on? What shots are we gonna get? All that considering how cold it was as well, I'm so happy with the shots we did get in the end, because if you didn't know it was cold, you wouldn't know that was an issue through the footage. So probably the biggest thing is make sure you have weights on the camera and on you yourself. You're both a bag of air, so you both need to be weighed down in water, which will just float to the top. Luckily, on the day, I had the legend that is Gareth Gattrell there actually on set. If you don't know who he is, he shoots the unit stills for Marvel projects, so he's just done Loki Season 2 and Secret Invasion, and he is local to me, so that's great. And he's just such a nice, humble guy. I had so many queries to ask him on the day, and he just come back with every answer possible. Yeah, it was so good to meet him. But he brought these two weights with him, so he does underwater photography himself, and he brought these two little weights that come in so handy. I think he just got them from underwater scuba diving shop. All these did were they essentially attached onto the side of the housing, and it just made the camera sync with the battery pack and all the other the weight of the Blackmagic itself, and these on either side of it. It really did weigh it down. I almost found myself pulling the camera up instead of fighting it down, which was super useful, especially for the lower angle shots looking up as she jumps into the pool. But weights are super important, and make sure you do have them, because it will make your life so much easier, because otherwise you'd be fighting constantly, trying to sink, trying to breathe out and get rid of the air out of your body, which is exhausting after a couple of times of doing it. The major drawbacks of the actual zip bag, we call it a zip bag, the housing, was obviously this bit here is plastic, and when you've got the big screen of the Blackmagic in there, you can't actually see it. Like, I don't know if you can see that now, but it's fairly like, it's like warped, and trying to see the screen underwater when it's warped anyway was near on impossible. So the only way I could see it was at a certain angle, and I found it was like kind of underneath. So if I was like this eye level with it, I'd be able to see the screen, which was fairly difficult for some shots. Again, you kind of get used to when you're underwater, and you're almost kind of just free shooting by the end of it, because you really can't see the screen, especially when your eyes need to be level with it. And especially when I've got the big goggles on as well, like it made it even harder to see. Again, for £70, I don't think you can really complain. And obviously on the Blackmagic, it's all manual focus. So before you go in, you have to set your focus before, because there is some finger holes on the lens pouch, but you can't really turn the focus puller because you just can't get the angle on it. So you need to make sure you set your focus distance before you jump into the pool. And as it turned out for us, we had loads of shots we were going to get, but because of how cold it was, we just stuck it on one focus point and got as many shots as possible as we could from that distance. I think it was like, I want to say near on a meter, the distance I was between, the distance it was between me and Amelia. Obviously some of the shots were out of focus, but when it's so much going on with the bubbles and stuff going past the frame, you can't really tell anyway. Depends on the project you're doing. On music video, you can kind of have that like creative leeway, and that like, you can kind of get away with it. But if you're doing like a high-end commercial shoot, then everything does need to be in focus, then you need to make sure you get that bang on. If you do want to change your focus, you have to unscrew this top bit and then do it yourself, and then change the focus and then screw it back on. But I just felt it was a little bit risky with water all over it already. I just didn't want any getting into the actual housing itself. I shot all the takes in 60 frames per second, because then I knew if we got 5 seconds of solid footage, I'd be able to turn that into like 10-15 seconds worth of footage. I'd probably say it was slow motion is the best way to go if you're going underwater, because like I said, you only have to get like a small fraction of time that it's in focus or it's a good angle, and you can actually really make use of it as a long clip. Lighting wise, I shone the Forza 60 straight into the water with no caps or anything on it. I just put the lighting hood on it and got the makeup artist to just shine it straight into the water, and it create this really nice like light ray effect under the water, which actually works better than I thought it was going to do. I kind of knew you just needed to shove like a really bright light straight into the water, but yeah, it worked out better than I thought it would. I suppose the last thing about this bag, if you are using the Blackmagic, obviously the buttons on the Blackmagic are quite soft to press. So especially in this bag, when you have weights on the left and right side of the bag, it kind of pulls on the material, and it kind of like brushes past the stop and start button. So I actually found myself when I was ready and set, it would record, then stop, then record, then stop, because of the bag like kind of pressing the button. So I had to hold the bag at certain points that wasn't touching that part. There is like a finger hole to the side, so you can just put your finger in. That's how you kind of click start and record. Overall, for a piece of equipment that's the £70 that enables you to get underwater shots that you just wouldn't be able to get otherwise, I think it's great. I think it obviously has its limitations, like some of the stuff I've just spoken about, but it got all the shots I got in the music video. It enabled me to get those shots underwater, and the most important thing, it kept my camera dry. So you can't really ask for much more than that. I hope you enjoyed this video and you found it somewhat useful. Let me know if you want me to do another video explaining a little bit more about the camera bag, because this was fairly brief. I hope you're all having a good week, and I will see you soon.